well, we are back in action. So I was just glad to see everybody interacting, talking, loosening up. I was talking about Ozzy, work group and all that. It was cool.
Yes, how y'all feeling? Yeah, I'm about to turn it up on you just a little bit.
That's a switch.
So we're gonna have Mr. Danny come up.
Yes.
Yeah, but even though we know him, sometimes the people that's around us, we don't really know their credentials for real. We just know they do a little something. So we're just gonna read to you what he got going on, because I was pleasantly surprised. Like, what just happened?
So without further ado, Mr. Danny. So Mr. Dannie Boyd, also known as Danny B. He is a poet, songwriter, and photographer. He uses writing and photography to create stories that educate, inspire, and entertain. His first project, Blackouts, in 2006, it was a video documentation of daily rap battles that took place at his high school, which was Riverview Garden Senior High School. And so after enrolling in college, he decided to study creative writing, and he joined the St. Louis Community College at Flow Valley Poetry Club, where he was awarded Most Prolific Poet in 2009. Okay, so also in 2009, he was doing big things. He self-published his own book of poetry and short stories, The Black Apple, and then he tried his hand at photography. Oh, that's where photography came in. Okay. He participated in his first group art exhibition, Viz Van Amsterdam. I think I said it right. At Amstel's Galleries, Fizo, where it was display photography, and he took this all while studying Amsterdam. So we went to Amsterdam, cross country. So Amsterdam's beautiful architecture and bike culture fascinated him so much that he eventually created his first photo book, which was, is it Mooi Amsterdam in 2014. So after revisiting film, he wrote and executive produced a short film called Business for Pleasure. This came out in 2014 with three of his best friends. So that was a mouthful. I got just a little more. So in addition, man did a lot. So in addition to directing, photography, editing, and acting in the film, he also wrote the film score. It was his first time composing original music. So while his written and photographic works dominated his public body of work, Danny was pursuing his ambition of becoming a musician privately. His music journey started with learning the guitar and then evolved to playing bass, piano, and writing original songs. So everybody snap it up. It's hard not to clap.
It's hard not to.
Dannie Boyd.
Come on up. Come on. Whatever you want.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you very much for coming to this wonderful experience. It's really weird, like kind of sitting in the back, because I'm usually an active person. I'm usually a doer, and I feel like I'm approaching this part of my life where I'm gradually transitioning into being more of like an advocate for other people, being a producer. And I guess tonight is kind of a staple of that, how I asked Lena and Ariana as well as Ozzy to be a part of this idea that sort of came up. So I guess let me unpack some of my bio because it's like a lot, and it kind of shocked me when I was writing it. So probably early on in my poetry career, I would always tell the story of how when I was in high school, I was real shy. Like I could not approach girls for anything to save my life. So I would just start writing things down. I would write little notes and things like that. And so whenever I would come into art circles, I would tell the story of, college was kind of it, when I decided, I want to get into writing, even though I started off studying computer science. And so literally within the past few months, I sort of had this revelation of my origin kind of preceded college. As I realized a lot of the gifts that we have start very early in life, even though we don't realize it. If you're a beat maker, there's a chance that those seeds were planted when you were 5 years old. You just don't really remember that far. And so that kind of ties into the night, kind of like unpacking things. Some of the things are good things, such as our accomplishments and achievements. Some of the things are things that kind of weigh us down a little bit. And so the concept of heartstrings came about kind of spontaneously. Last summer, I wrote this poem that I'm gonna do tonight called 30 Years. And essentially the idea came from thinking about myself. I was turning 30 last summer, and I'm like, man, I'm unmarried, I'm single and everything like that. And I always hear this story of my parents and how they were high school sweethearts. They met in high school. They dated back and forth, and then they actually got married when they were about 27 to 28. And I'm like, that was the narrative that I grew up with. Why isn't my life like that? And when I thought about it, for the people that I know that are unmarried, chances are you've had a number of relationships in that period of unmarriedness. And a lot of times when we have those interactions, be it positive or negative, we pick up things, whether it be, you went through a bad breakup, whether you had communication issues, no matter those things, we sort of track those things with us throughout life, and it kind of accumulates. And so I felt like 30 is the perfect point in time to start unpackaging a lot of that stuff and start the process of letting that go, because I feel like in order to receive new things, we have to let go of some of the old things. And so started off with the poem, and then I kind of snowballed into my first song. And so, all along, come from a musical family, music on both sides, so it was kind of inevitable that I was going to get into music. And so I started off as a poet, and then I became a musician playing with other people. And one day I'm like, hey, I got lyrics, I have music, instrumentation, I can put the two together. And so last year I began the process of actually composing my original songs. Also working with one of my close friends by the name of Jasmine Turner, who's a singer-songwriter. And we just kind of, vibe together, share some creative energy. And essentially from the last summer 2018, throughout the fall and the winter, I basically came up with a couple of songs, a couple of poems that were around this theme. And so originally I was supposed to do a show in this space in February for Valentine's Day, but I had like some issues with my voice, kind of a learning lesson from being a singer. When you kind of get started, you kind of strain yourself, you overdo it, and your body's like, nah, you can't do that. So, this space was supposed to be this wonderful Valentine's Day show, and I ended up having to postpone it. And during that period, I'm like, how can I refresh it? By the time it happens, it's not gonna be Valentine's Day anymore, so I can't do the whole love thing. And something just kind of clicked on me. I'm looking at one of the pictures that I had on Instagram, and I saw the guitar and thought about strings. And I'm like, oh, heartstrings, kind of putting it together. And so tonight kind of just, it was the universe, it was God, whatever being that you praise to. That's literally what brought tonight together. It's what brought all of you here. And that's pretty much the story. And so tonight is kind of gonna be, I guess, a preview of what I've been working on, and kind of a pre-EP. That's my ambition, is to actually create an EP from all the music that I'm gonna be doing. So that was a lot of talking. So let's go ahead and start gradually getting into stuff. While I'm getting organized, how y'all doing?
Good.
Anybody learn anything valuable so far?
Yeah.
Like what? I'm a teacher, I'll be asking stuff. Man, so when I was redoing my biography and realizing that I had done all this stuff, I realized that a lot of it, there's some of it people knew, when I was in the moment of creation, a lot of people knew of the things that I was doing, but I found myself in this space of sort of being insecure about sharing some of the older works with newer people. So I guess this is a perfectionist in me. I'm very much just that, a perfectionist, and I want things to be polished and presented. And so, with the documentary, it was also a pre-YouTube day, so it's not like I put it on YouTube or anything like that. And then even with the book of poetry and short stories I did, I did it very early on in college. And eventually I kind of grew insecure, as you progress through life, you start to see errors, typos, and things like that. I'm like, man, I can't put this out. So there's this part of me that's like, I can't really, I can't really share myself, but I'm gradually learning that it's just all part of the process. Nobody starts out perfect, and we have to be comfortable with, sharing what we have, because you never know who can benefit from it, who's gonna appreciate you sharing, the simplest thing, even if you think it is flawed in some way. So I think at some point I might have to hire a professional speechwriter, even though I'm writing myself, to sort of condense all of that, because it'd be a mouthful, and when people ask me what I do, it's always the most awkward conversation, because I'm like, well, I don't know where to start. Alrighty, so now that I'm prepared, I present to you Heartstrings.
closer to you every day, even though we're so far away. Each month there's a new chance to fix what we cannot understand. I'm lost. You're lost. We're all. We're all. Hope feels so far away. It could come tomorrow, fade today. We've suffered through so many things. We're a nightmare, but could be a beautiful dream. We both see hurt and pain. We're drawn together 'cause we're both the same. Two broken people trying to collect the pieces, pretending we know what healing really is. We both see hurt and pain. We're drawn together 'cause we're both the same. Two broken people trying to collect the pieces, pretending we know what healing really is.
So like one of the most nerve-wracking things about tonight, other than trying to like put all this together, is really getting more comfortable with being like a singer-songwriter. It's something that's relatively new to me. I first started taking singing lessons almost 2 years ago, and the first time I actually like ever sung publicly was at Lyrical Therapy, probably about this time last year. And it was kind of like this awkward thing because I started off learning covers, and you know, even though I would love a song, I would never really feel comfortable singing somebody else's song, because I feel like, you know, that person that put the energy and the spirit into that song, like that was them, you know, whatever they were feeling at that moment, you know, it's all them. And I feel like I can't really do that. So, you know, I decided to just focus on writing my own music and not really think about covers. And then after that, my first time singing was at my feature at Word Up this past February. And I started off with poetry, and then I ended the set with some songwriting. And the first thing I noticed, me personally, like I felt very vulnerable, like in comparison to my poetry. You know, I've been doing poetry for years, but singing just kind of brings out something different to you. And even, you know, my friend Jasmine, she was like, for men, it's kind of like the insecurity of like singing higher or using a higher voice. She's like, you know, a lot of men, they be shy about doing that. So, you know, it's kind of like this apprehension that people have. And it's definitely, you know, taking me a little bit of time to, you know, get comfortable, get warmed up. But, you know, like all good things, you know, you have to start somewhere if you ever want to progress.
Great.
Thank you. And so that one was called Beautiful Dreams. So I wrote that back in June, I believe, June of last year. And it was one of those things, you know, I was kind of like in my feelings, and I literally wrote it in a matter of like 10 minutes. Like I just had these things in my head and I just like put it all down, you know, like verse and everything, and then, you know, just came back, added the chords and melody to it, and, you know, I had like my first, what I felt was a real song that I would be comfortable performing. And so that basically, you know, starts the concept of heartstrings, with the idea that we have all these things, these incongruencies that we're, you know, struggling with other people, and, you know, trying to like acknowledge that, you know, you really want to be with somebody, but you feel like, you know, something's not really going on that's keeping us from actually reaching this goal, but you can't really figure out what it is. So that's where that one came from. So the next one is called, why am I forgetting my own song names? Oh, I'll Never Get Over You.
We were together from summer to spring. Backwards we were, that was our thing. A casual flame turned to something exciting. Feelings were rising to a love so surprising, but two hearts searching for a faith worth fighting for began fighting more, fighting more. I'll never get over you. 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 Another year goes by, 12 more months of you and I, stuck in this place of love that'll never die. Absence makes the heart dream of the sky. I see clouds whenever I look into your eyes. I'll never get over you. 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 How many times can we go around this circle? Love still feels so fertile. Will we ever find our forever? Or are we just waiting for someone better? The longer it takes to get to yes, the harder it gets to say no to you. it takes to get to yes, the heartache is to say no to you. I'll never get over 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 you.
Man, so I guess outside of the singing part, I guess like the lyrics feel vulnerable, but I feel like that's the real stuff. Like if you don't feel something, then nobody else will. And you know, like Quincy Jones has this quote. If you ever listen to Michael Jackson's Thriller album, the expanded version, where they have like the commentary, he says he judges all of his music by goosebumps. And he says, like, if I feel goosebumps when I'm writing something, then I know that there's a chance that it's gonna touch somebody else. And I remember like a couple of years ago, I was writing a blog post for a friend's website, and I told this whole story about like, oh, I went through this with a relationship, and this happened, and then, this is where I ended up. And she was like, what specifically happened? And I'm like, this kind of happened. She's like, no, like what specifically happened? And so it kind of put me in this place of realizing how vulnerable it is to talk about something, but at the same time, you can't really get healing from something unless you get to the point where you can actually acknowledge what that thing is. And actually, it ties into a pastor that I know, a pastor by the name of Keith Pendleton, and he has this saying, like, you have to name sin. Like, a lot of people pray for forgiveness. They're like, man, Lord, forgive me for this. He's like, no, you need to say specifically what you did, because if you don't say specifically what you did, you're never acknowledging how to move forward beyond that point. So next up, I have a poem, and so this is the poem that I referenced earlier on called 30 Years, which is kind of like another Genesis piece for where, this whole concept of heartstrings started. And so this is that poem. Every woman before you was perfect until she wasn't. Every relationship seemed like it had wings that would fly me to the promised land of fairy tales and sunshine until those soft down feathers became ruined in surprise thunderstorms that happened to pop up in the middle of summertime. After one relationship failed, it seemed like the next one was taking me higher. I would learn new things about myself, like how I sometimes moved a little bit too fast. That can be pretty helpful whenever you're trying to start something new, but isn't it funny how everything that's new seems like it was made just for you? New love is always the right love, and the right love is always new love, but new love has to mature, or it just becomes old love. You see, I've fallen victim to old love, but here I am. I arrived on your doorstep with bags packed full of old love trying to move into your heart. I know I should get rid of them, but I have no idea where I should start. You see, these solo flights can be pretty lonely, and I don't want another woman's dirty laundry to stop you from getting on board with me. I always thought I would be just like my parents. Connected to your life partner in your 20s, but instead I'm connected to this string of failed relationships that are gonna shape my perception of love in my 30s, and
I don't even want to think about what life is going to be like in my 40s. You see, every time I think about my rap sheet of romances, I always seem to get caught up in how dismal it always sounds. But gradually, I start to realize that life is actually just beginning. You have to go through a few things before you ever start winning. You have to go through the oven a few times and then heal before you ever dream about being somebody's full-course meal. So here I am. I arrived on your doorstep with bags packed full of old love trying to move into your heart. But what I realized is that in those bags are lessons that are gonna grow into blessings, and they're gonna show me exactly where to start. That's that piece.
Oh.
So this is like the halfway point of the set, and so the way I structured Heartstrings or the Perspective EP that I hope to record, or I will record, speak that into existence. So the way it's structured is kind of a flow. So it starts off kind of like dark, you're in that relationship or that situationship that sort of has you all over the place, pulling your hair out, thinking you crazy and everything like that. And it gradually transitions to acknowledging the things that have held you back, that have hindered you, and you eventually reach this place where you can grow after releasing those things. So I actually want to take this time to sort of, make this interactive and just open it up, because my whole thing is giving all of you all the opportunity to let something go and leave here with something new. And so I just kind of want to ask y'all, what are some things that you all want to let go of?
Oh my gosh, this is perfect. Well, with your permission, this is the piece that she was going to do earlier, but it's perfect for what you're talking about with letting go. Yeah.
We are feeling the energy. We're going to have you do this piece now.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Oh my gosh.
Alrighty, yeah, this is just, she's back there like, oh my gosh, but it's the perfect segue. So the name of this piece is called Payback, and it's literally about forgiveness. It's about somebody who, did my people wrong. Okay, well, my bestie over here, somebody did her wrong, and I was pretty hot about it. I think I was more mad about it than she was. It took me a while to let it go. I think it's still a little piece there. I should be like, but I'm working on letting it go. That's what it's about, letting it go and forgiving. So I'll get into it. It's called Payback. All right. I think I need to use the mic, or should I just? You hear me? Okay. Okay. All right. I wanted you to pay, but payback is just a temporary setback for an offense you committed way back. But still, and yet you hurt me. Because you see, I took it personal. Even though the offense wasn't on me, you hurt my family. Blood couldn't make us closer, but I was mad at you because the blood he drew is the very same blood that God is using to shape, make, and mold you. And he turned it around and used it to convict me too. So I guess, really, I should thank you. Because see, you exposed in me a cold, harsh reality. A truth that I wasn't ready to face. But one that he left me with no choice but to embrace. Forgiveness. But I said, Lord, how can I forgive this man when the sin that's still in this man has not broke this man? What? It's all just a part of your plan and I should just trust your hand? But see, to me, you made it easy. He walking around 2 feet on the ground, frown turned upside down, no remorse. But who am I to judge? But I feel, who am I not? Feeling justified in my wrong because the feelings were so strong that in the pain and the agony of that day, in which you almost took a part of a life away. So now I'm just supposed to betray my thoughts, abandon my feelings and tell my anger to get lost?
But you see, I am. Because God is hurting for the lost. Because the truth is, the ones that are committing the offenses are the ones that are truly lost. They're the ones that are broke. They're the ones that are hurt, broke, bruised, and tattered, hearts usually shattered. But all of that rarely matters when a shattered heart breaks mine. So now I gotta find healing? But the place, you see, that he's trying to take me is to a place where a broke heart won't break mine. Where the broke heart will strike my heart and find something truly divine. Brighter than the brightest sunshine on a bright sunny day. A light that will still point and say, Jesus is the way. And that although you hurt me, I'm still gonna pray. You see, God is waiting on that day. And I'm forced to find love and to not let this offense stand in the way. God loves you. And I'm trying to get to a place where I can love you too. That part's called healing. So I'm gonna let God work on my heart. But I guess I have you to thank for showing me where to start.
Man, so like I've been on the poetry scene for quite a while, and there's so many different poems, songs, some of everything that I've had the opportunity to hear, and everybody, they have something that they're bringing with them to the mic, and it's just really interesting kind of hearing everybody's different perspective. And even just, taking off the artist hat and not really trying to judge people on their art, but just hearing their words and what they say. And it just really makes you think about how many people are feeling something. And, it might not even be somebody that's single. It could be somebody that's married and they may be feeling something. And so I guess like prior to this evening, like in my mind, the vision for Heartstrings was kind of like this, room full of single people that were all in the same place. You're like, hey, we trying to make it together, this poems committee. But it's making me realize in this moment that no matter where you are, whether you're married, a year, 5 years, or 30 years, there's always something that you're gonna need to let go, whether it be something your husband and wife did wrong, whether it's something that somebody else did wrong that you brought into the marriage or the relationship. Bless you.
Excuse me.
And so it's making me realize that like healing isn't just this one and done thing. If I were to like let all this go and be married tomorrow, like that's not the end of my healing cycle. Like it's going to be this ongoing thing of like you pick up something and then you need to start peeling away those layers of things that you picked up. So I guess when I think about letting go, thinking like beyond the whole relationship space. I kind of go back to 2014, the time of Ferguson. And so I literally didn't realize this until last summer when I was having a conversation with a friend. But when Ferguson took place, I actually wasn't in St. Louis. I was in Toronto. That was supposed to be my, summer getaway and everything like that. And then I'm on social media and they're like, yo, like there was a shooting in Ferguson. And I'm like, oh, well, I mean, it's sad, but it happens. It's a regular thing, unfortunately. But then there's like more and more posts and tweets. And then, before I know it, there's a mob of people. And then there's, the Quick Trip that's on fire. And so all of this is going on while I'm in a different country, so I don't have the opportunity to get on the phone and like talk to people. I'm just like watching all this on social media. And so when I got home, probably about 4 days later, the minute I touched down at Lambert, like something just felt different about St. Louis. I'll never forget, the drive home, going down 70 to 170 and seeing like traffic kind of being deserted and looking around at all the different people in their cars. Like there was just this negative energy that you can just see on people while they was driving. And I realized that like literally my home changed while I was gone. And that was something that I'd been holding on to for years. In addition to, my father battling with cancer and everything like that. And it was kind of obvious, the piece with my father, but I never really realized how much of an impact Ferguson had on me until I was having this conversation with my friend about photography and how I felt like I couldn't really move forward. I had started working on this collection of photos from Toronto, and then it kind of just instantly jumped to doing stuff on Ferguson, and I just felt very gray. That's the color I used to define myself. Like, I really didn't feel like I had this sense of clarity. I was just moving in the moment, and it wasn't until I had this conversation with my friend where she was like, that's a big deal. Like, your home literally changed while you were gone, and that's not anything to be taken lightly. And so it took me time to really learn, well, first acknowledge it, but then also kind of let go of all the things that I kind of tried to hold on to prior to that, and accept the fact that the city has changed, both in a negative way, but also in a positive way, with a lot of things that have come as a result of a lot of the organization and everything like that. So it's literally been like this 2-year process of kind of accepting the now and, kind of being present and everything like that. And, all along, music has kind of been this healing space that's helped that process along. So this next piece is a piece that's entitled Yes. And so the idea behind this piece is, you've gone through all these struggles with a particular person, but essentially you want to get to this point of saying, yes, we can move past all this and we can be settled, we can be happy with each other. I want to be at yes with you. When I ask you to be my woman, I want the only answer on your mind to be, yes, I'm down with you. I hope we can move past all the issues that have kept us apart. I pray that we heal from insecurities that suffocate love, because we're both learning how to breathe again. I want you to be wholly you and me to be wholly me. So when I ask you to be my woman, you can say yes without any hesitation. May all of our fears shed away and let both of us become comfortable with being vulnerable. I promise to protect your heart as if it were mine and be open enough to let you inside. I want you to say yes without any regrets about where we've come from or where we're going, because none of that matters as long as I get to be at yes with you. And that's that piece. So this is the final piece that I had prepared tonight, and it's really like near and dear to me. Of all the things that I've written, both poetry and music, this one kind of stands out to me because it was created from a place of purity, and so it is called Leaping. And so one of the things I realized when hearing, all these love poems, whether it be bad stuff or whether it be happy-go-lucky good stuff, is that everybody talks about either this was a bad relationship, I want to get rid of this person, or I'm happily in love, everything's good. And so I wanted to kind of hit that in between that people don't really talk about, because a lot of pieces that I've done before kind of fit that same narrative of either something's bad or something's good, but I really like the concept of anticipation and really talking about the moment of conception. And so this song was born out of this place of thinking about when you find somebody that you like, you've been dating them for, a period of time, and you get to that point where you're like, okay, we've been dating, like we see eye to eye, this is working. Now we want to make something permanent out of this, and really trying to capture that moment of like being all in your feelings, having those butterflies of, man, like, for guys, you want to ask that person. For women, it's like, oh, is he going to ask me or something like that? So this is called Leaping. A simple question has me on edge. This part confession of the thoughts in my head. A few little words that I had to ask you. 'Cause my heart is hearing the way my soul feels about you. You're the most beautiful feeling that I've ever felt before. So if it's in the cards, I'm hoping a yes is what I'll draw. Will you be the one? 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 I've known love before, but I never knew it could feel this way. I asked you to be the one, and I'm waiting to hear just what you'll say. I fell for you, now I'm falling to my face, hoping you'll rescue me with the sweetest embrace. I'm hoping you'll rescue me with the sweetest embrace. And save me from this suicide so you and I can spend our lives happy together, happy forever. Save me from this suicide so you and I can spend our lives happy together, happy forever. Will you be the one? 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 Oh, how I love you, oh, how I trust you, oh, how my heart says no. Love only goes, love only goes, love You said yes. This is where forever starts. You said yes. This is where our forever starts. You and I, we were born to fly. We'll share the sky, just me and you, happy together, happy forever. You and I will share the sky. We were born to fly, just you and me, happy together, happy forever. Will you be the one? 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 Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. So this has been Heartstrings, this wonderful concoction of ideas that manifested themselves in my head and then actually came to you here tonight. I'm so happy for each and every one of you that it came out. I truly believe that it was meant for each and every one of you to be here tonight. And I really hope that you were able to let go of something and also gain something that you can take along with you. Also, we have our merch table over here. Aza has some of her books, and I also have some of my photographs. I would bring my EP, but it ain't ready yet. So until then, I got some slang photographs. They're each $10, and Aza, how much are your books? 10 to 15 for her books. So I told Brianna I'd be out of here by like 10:30. Oh, so she said we're good. So I really don't want to take like all this wine and stuff home. Like I don't drink, so it's basically just gonna sit somewhere. There's plates full of cookies, so we can chill, vibe, all that good stuff. So thank you all again.